for those of you who are new to this, and there are one or two faces that I haven't seen yet, and I'm sure Chris has told you all about it, but just so that you know, we've been doing the updates for just over a year now, and it's done retrospectively, of course. So I collate all the updates from the previous month into the beginning of the next month, just in case there's any that you've missed. Because of the summer holiday break, of course, we didn't do one at the end of July, because that would have been the beginning of August when everyone was on holiday. So these are all the updates for July and August, and I've just snuck a couple in from September. One because it was just relatively little and could just sit there, and the two because it's about an upcoming change, just in case you're still on some of the old legacy software. But we'll come to that at the very end. So the pattern is that I'll work through them, give you the updates. These are the updates for the user interface. If you want to come along and join us on Wednesday for the technical updates, you are more than welcome, and Chris will send out a link if he hasn't. I mean, he would have done it already, but he can remind you of that link should you need it. Normally they happen on a Tuesday, but I'm actually out tomorrow anyway, and my colleague was out tomorrow, so it didn't work out properly. But generally speaking, it'll be the first Monday and Tuesday of the month. One Monday for the user interface and Tuesday for the technical updates. It changes occasionally because of bank holidays and things, so just to be aware of that. But generally speaking, it's the first working Monday and Tuesday of the month for these events, and they will happen every month right through the school year. So here we go. So Space Managers is the first one. This came out in July. I do love the fact that I'm a space manager. I feel like I'm part of a Toy Story film or something. It's great. You can now change access to new and to existing things to allow people to join by link or to be internal only. And you can see at the bottom of the image on the right there, you've got the option to specify not only internal, in this example, their domain is Acme, but a subset of that group within the organization. So if you just want the engineering department, if that group already existed, then you can select that group and add them in there, and just makes it a little bit easier to manage how you do it. I think the join by link has been there quite a while. Don't forget, these are from July, so you may well think of these. Well, Paul, that's been there for ages. These are the ones that came out from July and August, so it does feel like quite a while ago. So better sharing options in Calendar. You now got the option to set up a link to embed it, or actually to embed a button on your website, and you'll get the link to be able to do that. And when the person, this is in appointment schedules, when you're using appointment schedules in your calendar, and when the person clicks on the appointment, the default is it asks for their first name, last name, and email address. You can add custom fields in there to say, tell me the reason for the meeting, do you want me to invite anybody else? Or so you can add custom questions into the little form they fill out to give you information when they book an appointment using the appointment scheduler that's built into Google Calendar that already exists. So it's just an update on the appointment scheduler in Calendar. Okay, so this one it allows the collaborators to analyze data in connected sheets with delegated access. First thing is that you've got to be able to allow the admin person needs to allow delegated access to happen in the admin panel. And once that's in there, you can then allow people some freedom to do some more analysis with a delegated access where the data is connected elsewhere, but it allows them to run big queries and update all those kinds of things. But it's internal only, and it's only linked to Education Standard and Education Plus. So the teaching and learning and the fundamentals don't have that option. So if you are running, massive analysis of data, and you've sensibly put that data, because it's such a large data set, into the cloud and then linked it back to a Google Sheet, and you've got a little bit more control about how you can allow people to use that and to refresh the data so that they can actually see the most up-to-date version of the data. And it in fact uses your credentials. In fact, you allow them delegated access to your credentials of that big query to spreadsheet link. That's the way it works. Miro is an interesting one. This is here now. I had a quick look at this last week when I was preparing this slide deck. Miro is basically like the Google Jamboard, but on steroids. Does a whole lot of really nice things in terms of flow charts and ready-built kind of charts that you can build onto to allow people to work on. The setting is this off by default. So again, your admin person needs to turn on the add-ons and allow that inside your Google Meet settings. But once they've got it, as long as you're signed in properly, then you can use them both in Chrome and in Microsoft Edge, which is quite nice. But you do need to be signed into your Google account, of course, for them to be enabled, in the same way that you do need to be signed in to get things like bookmarks and your extensions and things. So you need to be signed into the browser. Clearly, that's not an issue on a Chromebook because you're already signed into Chrome when you sign in, but on PCs and Macs, you need to be signed into the browser for that to work. But it's definitely worth a look. If you're someone who's already been using Google's Jamboard, then looking at this, I think you'll find there's some really, really nice additional bits of functionality in there over and above what you get in Whiteboard. So that's a really nice little addition, and it's already there in your Meet spaces. So you can now build larger spaces, and I made a note about the size, and I didn't put it on the slide deck. I think it's up to 8,000 now in a single Google chat space. So you've got a much, much larger option within it. So if you've got very large staff body, then you can add them all in, or a large student body and you want them to be able to use it, a kind of an internal chat forum that's fully moderated and kind of ring fence, then you can do that now because the limit is now up to 8,000. That's a quick that one. So teaching and learning and upgrade education plus only, this is you can add in polls, and they've been there for quite some time now, the polls option, but now you can allow the people to respond anonymously. And you can see again a little icon there at the bottom of a poll. There's the option that all responses can be anonymous, so you don't have to collect their name. And what I didn't check, and I should have done, and I apologise for that, I maybe do a quick check and send a note to Chris when he sends this slide deck out at the end to find out whether it's anonymous on screen. Well, it's always anonymous on screen, so it will be anonymous in the feedback. When you do a poll, in case people aren't aware, you get a report after the meet to tell you who's responded to what. So I'm assuming by clicking that you will not get their names in the Google Sheet you get that tells you the responses to the polls. So just to be aware that if it's a teaching tool to, a temperature check of understanding within a class, then I would be saying don't tick that, because you don't know which students didn't understand the concept you were polling about. So just to be aware of that, but you can make it anonymous. If we were doing a public event like this, I might choose to make a poll anonymous in this example, because you don't necessarily want to know what people think about the particular question. So, but in a class, I probably wouldn't use that tool. But it's only teaching and learning and education plus. So for quite a while, we've had the option, probably years now, to add in notifications about changes to documents inside Google Sheets. And you can decide when either you get notified either as a daily digest or immediately when someone makes a change or someone submits a form. And that's been there for a long while. It's been really useful. If you use a Google form to collect data, to set up a notification saying, let me know when someone fills out the form, so I know it's been filled out. That's really useful. Saves you going to check, of course. It tells you when it happens. And it hasn't been in Google Docs, but it is now. So you can actually make a decision about those settings. Yeah, all comments where you're mentioned or none. Yeah. Or when anyone adds or removes content in the document. So any additions that are made to it, you can actually add a notification rule for yourself there. Okay. I heard a bleep. I didn't want to know what the bleep was for, but I think it might have just been someone requesting access, and I think we're okay. We're good. Going to keep going. Okay, so that's long waited for. Actually, that's really, really good that that's arrived. That's great. So this isn't. I've spent a lot of time reading about this, because I think, well, actually, I don't think this has ever happened. If you get a spam invitation in your calendar for someone, clearly that's a bit of a nuisance. You don't want that to be happening. And I don't know whether anyone in the Meet has actually had spam invitations into their calendar. I certainly haven't, but well, I suppose it comes by email, doesn't it? And then into your calendar. But now it's default on for all. But what you can do is you can customize the settings, and you can decide that it's going to show straight away or only show once you've accepted, so that you don't, if you do get lots and lots of people inviting you for meetings that you don't want to appear, you can say, well, actually, unless they are known senders, and known senders need to be in your contacts, then only then will they appear if you specify they appear based on the rules that you can set. Okay, so if you know the sender, then it'll appear in your calendar, it'll appear in Gmail, of course, that's how it comes in. But if you don't know the sender, they're not a known person, then it won't appear in your calendar until you accept via the email that comes in. So you'll only see them in the email. So it's just a way to keep that a little bit neater and tidier in your inbox and in your calendar. You can now delete chat spaces, generally available to everyone. This is really useful. We've used chat spaces as a support mechanism for a number of our customers over time, and I'm now going through deleting some of the contracts that have now finished, because of course I don't know how many I've got far too many chat spaces, and it's really useful that I can actually now go through and delete those. So that's great. That's nice and simple to do. Your most recently used emojis are now start to appear as a list across the top. Again, these have been here for a little while now, but it just means you've got the option to click on the ones that you use the most, rather than having to scroll down or to search each time to find the ones that you want. It just makes the use of emojis that little bit quicker when you're in Google Chat. This is another great thing that has just come in, the option to live stream via YouTube. So if you've got, let's hope we never do, but if we do end up having to go into lockdown or cases become more difficult and you choose to do your parents' evenings, or not parent, an open evening rather, online rather than doing it face to face, then you can choose to live stream. You can do a live stream tour of the school. So someone could just click on a link, and someone will be walking around with a camera or phone or whatever, showing you a tour of the school, or the head's presentation, or whatever. Teaching and Learning Upgrade or Education Plus. It appears inside the Meet, and you can see the 4 Meet screens there that are prompts that just guide you through it. Nice and easy to set up, not very difficult. 3 panels to set it up, and the last stream is to stop it. So really neat. But then that's what you expect from Google: nice, neat, simple interfaces. Excuse me, to get that going. So that's really, really good that you can do that. This also is a really nice thing. This is about getting Android apps on Android devices to be a bit more interactive with each other, and it just allows you to make use. So you can see on the right the little GIF of an Android tablet with split screen with the 2 apps sitting side by side, and you can literally move things across from app to app. And I've listed the things that you can do on the left, so you can see them. So that in the example, you can see Sheets to Docs and Docs to Sheets, but you can also move things from Keep into Drive and vice versa, which will also be really useful. And if you are using an attached keyboard to the Android device, there's a whole sequence of keyboard shortcuts that you're probably familiar with already. You Control-C, Control-V, etc., which will also work to allow you to be more efficient in your use of the mobile apps on Android devices. I mean, typically the mobile apps are brilliant, and I do use them. I use them quite a lot, but there does come a stage where you think, oh, that piece of functionality just isn't there, and it is a little bit frustrating. So the fact that they're building more functionality into these is great. And split screen, I do have a failing eyes, being of a certain age, so my phone is very large, so this will be really helpful for me to be able to move things across from one document to another. Working location has been with us for quite some time now, maybe 6 months possibly. Built into that now is the option to be a little bit more specific, as long as you've been specific in the directory. So if all these, if you look at my image here, I can specify I'm working from home, office, those were already there. You can go into the location on your calendar and specify you're working elsewhere just by clicking on it and changing it for that particular day. If you've got other locations in the admin panel, then those other locations will become available to people. So you can start to be quite specific about telling people where your working location is. You know, if you happen to be someone working within a multi-academy trust, for example, yeah, or a multi-site college where you've got 4 or 5 campuses, it's handy for people to know where you are going to be. If they want to think about creating a meeting with you, they can see your calendar, see where you are, and then make a judgment about where you want to be based on the information you supply. Once it's enabled, you go into your settings in your calendar and go to the working hours and locations bit, and you can set the default, both your working hours and your location, and then each day you can just click on it and set the default for each individual days if your location changes.
Dave's got his hand up there, Paul.
Oh yeah, all right, excellent, thank you very much. Yes, Dave.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry, I would have dropped this in the chat, but it's disabled at the moment.
All right, sorry.
So with the working locations, did you say that we can essentially, through the admin panel, we can add other locations to be in people's default list there? Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, no, I haven't looked in the admin panel, but that's how I read it. Let me, I haven't got an admin panel open. Yes. And
it's where to find that in the admin panel, I guess.
I think, when you go to create resources, in the admin panel, you have to create buildings now, don't you, before you can create the resources.
Okay.
So my guess would be it's probably in there.
Okay.
Say, Dave, I'm sorry, I should have done it. You've called me out. I should have checked.
It's really timely this though, Paul, because this is exactly what we're looking at doing with our central team in the MAT, is that we, in order to assist with that agile workflow that we have, because we aren't based at one location, it's sometimes difficult to track where we're working from. Yeah. So as a central team, we discussed putting this in place. And you can go in and you can manually click and type in where you are on a given day, but just to be able to select from a drop-down list would be far neater for us.
I'm just going to have a quick look at the settings in my calendar, see if we've actually got anything in. So I've gone into the settings of my calendar, working hours and location. I don't think we've got anything set. I think these are just the defaults. Yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
when you can customize, add your own.
Yeah, you can type it in there by selecting another office, but ideally I'd like to be able to specify to add to that list of office, home and unspecified through the admin panel for our team.
Yeah. And this was early in this July or August, and I'm nervous that it's been a while since I read the documentation, so I'm not convinced what I'm telling you.
It may come in future updates, I guess, if it's not there already.
Yeah. I'll double check, Dave, and I'll get back to you. That's the thing to do. Brilliant. I will go back to my notes and find out where it was. But for everyone else, you can see I've gone in there and I've set the default location. You have got the option to specify another office, and it asks you to add it. But I'm certain that I read somewhere that you Dave, as a super admin, can add in locations. And I've seen that in another image that allows us to do that. And then, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, can you see across the top here, I've set my location to home because I'm home this week. But I can actually hover over any of the days and choose to change it. And then I just close. No, I just add another one there. So I add another location and then add in wherever I want to add. I'm not going to do that now because I'm not going to Bridlington this week. But you get my point. So that you can do it if you discard. So that he's back to, I've never got any set. No, that's not it. I'm up in Glasgow next week and I haven't changed it yet. But yeah, so it's a good question, but I haven't done enough homework to know precisely how it works. But I remember that you can set locations and places in the resources bit. When you add resources in, like your minibus and the IT room and all those things that people can book, I'm certain that's where it will be. But I'll double check and get back to you, Dave, if that's okay.
That's great. Thanks, Paul.
Because what you don't, you got me thinking now, because what you don't want is you don't want, if someone puts somewhere else or another office and they just call it, you know, you have 4 or 5 different versions of the same school name, that's not very helpful. You want to be more specific, don't you? But you would have a long list, wouldn't you? That's the thing.
That's it. It'd be interesting to see how that functionality surfaces. But
I'll update on Wednesday. I'll add this in as an update on Wednesday and check the admin settings for that on Wednesday when we do the techie updates.
Super. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. So better search suggestion options in Gmail. This is, I think I've been banging this drum for a little while. Google seem to be doing an awful lot of work adding extra functionality to things all the time, but a lot of the focus of all the additions they make are about improving efficiency or improving workflows. And this is an example of one of those things. So when you do a search for things in Gmail, you'll get better suggestions, basically. It's them using their machine learning, again, their AI, to say, well, what's the best way of doing it? And they'll think about how they order the searches that you find. So they'll make suggestions about people's first names or emails rather than their last names, for example. And you'll also get personalized suggestions based on your historical exchanges with those people. So they'll say, well, a minute, you started to type Chris, and Chris, his colleague at work, is the person that he types about for most. So they'll start to make suggestions about those. And again, it might be that you've not noticed that it's already started to happen, but all of these things just make your life that bit easier if the search you endeavor upon finds that thing that bit quicker, because it's looking at, well, what are the patterns of behaviors and how do you want to represent this data to make it easiest for you to access it and then make your next action. And that's what these are all go. I mean, you've already seen, I'm assuming, the smart chips that are appearing in Gmail and cloud search and other places, and these will only appear more and more in more places as we go on, because they also are building in that more focused search. It's just a slight improvement that you might not necessarily notice, but it is there.
Can I just chip in there, Paul, just on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
My one criticism with Gmail is the search. I've never thought it was particularly good. I use cloud search all the time, obviously with us being Education Plus. But just, for instance, Andrew Duffy on the call here. If I search, and I don't know whether it's just me, for Andrew Duffy, and Andrew Duffy's email address is aduffy@, I have a problem finding him. Whereas you'd think there'd be some kind of logic in there, because I'm obviously communicating with Andrew a lot and it is his name. But I find myself using cloud search all the time if I want to get something through Gmail. So if the search option is improving, that is a big step forward. It certainly saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, also check, see whether Google have worked out that Andrew's an important. Now, you know the little chevrons with a yellow flag that you can click on it?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
When you first start communicating with people, Google don't flag people as important. But if you start to get lots of emails, they start to say, well, we think this, based on volume, this is an important person. If they haven't flagged Andrew as important, try flagging it, because that might well improve the search, because that's another piece of information. And you just click on the little chevron, and it then says Andrew's important. And of course, Andrew's important. I'm not saying that he wasn't before, but you get my point, that you can.
Yeah, sure.
Lisa's
just commented as well. Yeah. She kind of suffers from the same thing I do. So yeah. That would be a big improvement. I love everything else about Gmail, but the search is sometimes a little bit less, than I would hope for. So fingers crossed that'll start to resolve that issue. It's obviously something Google are aware of. So
yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And for those who aren't aware, cloud search is an Education Plus additional tool that you get, and it basically does a search across your entire user account. So your mail, your calendar, your docs, your sheets, groups, its sites. It's just phenomenal, and you can be quite specific and filter down using the smart chip, saying, yeah, I'm looking for emails with attachments or sheets about Soundtrap from Chris Van Hallen, or because you can be really quite specific. And I'm a great fan of it. I use it a lot, because we like anyone's inbox, you've got lots and lots of different conversational threads, and remembering that particular thing from that particular person isn't always the easiest thing. So adding it in there is using cloud search to get there is really, really good. But it is Education Plus only, I'm afraid. So if you aren't currently on that particular SKU, then that won't be available to you. So this is Education Standard and Education Plus. and it's kind of a step closer to a proper mail merging option within Gmail. And you can basically turn this on within your Gmail, and you get basically like a marketing tool. And rather than it sending it as to everyone as CC or BCC, they basically sends them as individual emails to each of the people that you put into the email once you built it. And you can see that it comes with some ready built templates that you can then customize and put in your own text before you actually send it out. So it allows you to kind of, it's a thing that's been missing, isn't it, for a while. Of course, you've got BCC, so people don't see each other's and things, but this way would allow them to customize it that little bit better and look that bit better at the receiver's end. It's like a marketing tool built into Gmail. And the link will take you to the page. I should have said that at the beginning for those who are new. Each of these links, the title for each slide is a link to the help page that will show you how you go about turning these particular things on or off if you need to. This is another one of those things. It's about improved workflow. So the option now is that you can start to add in add-ons into Google Classroom. This is Teaching and Learning Upgrade, Education Plus only. But it's that whole thing about, you know, if you're using Flipgrid or you're using Soundtrap or you're using whatever the tool is that you're using, you can now add it directly into your Google Classroom, and you can assign the task from Google Classroom. Few things to note: that you can only create it with an add-on. You can create an assignment with an add-on, but only on the web version, so you can't create it on the mobile version. But once it's done, you can complete the task on the mobile version, and you can mark it on the mobile version. But the initial creation has to happen inside the web version. And the admin panel, the admin person basically has to decide how they're going to do it. They need to enable the add-ons within Google Classroom, and they either then, if you purchased an add-on, for example, you can then install it for all the staff from the central admin panel, of course, or you can create an allow list so that when the teacher goes in there, they can go and explore the add-ons and they will see the add-ons that you've allowed. Because, of course, they're not all required to be purchased. Some are free. So you can, those that are free, you can just leave in there if you've agreed that they are going to be made available for your school, and the teacher can go and find them for themselves and add them on. So then only the staff that need that particular add-on gets to add them to their set of tools. So this is very exciting. This is a kind of big, there's been murmurings about this for probably 2 years about add-ons inside Google Classroom. So it's great that they're now there and available, because again, it's that workflow, isn't it, that you all from a single place now. You haven't got to go out to another app to prepare some resources to then post a link that takes it. It's just all that much more integrated, so it's much quicker. The workflow is much more seamless for the teacher to deliver the things that they need to deliver. Just
a couple of points there, Paul. Yeah, Dave has, of course, just mentioned about watching you don't hit your daily send limits when you're doing your mail merging thing, but that's fine. That is quite a useful tool, actually. I've had a quick look at that, and there's potential there for me to use that, certainly. Stephen as well has very kindly just put a link in the chat to the Classroom add-ons, so you can take a look at that, take that list away with you and just see everyone that's available. Yeah, that was it really, Paul, just those two little points.
Good, thank you. I'm just going to quick slurp. Okay, another thing about working locations, I think I've already mentioned this. This might have been a repeat. I don't know quite why I put that in there again. Oh, office buildings, adding the office building support for working locations. And you can see there in that one, perhaps this is where I got this idea from, that you can specify within the admin panel, Dave, about the buildings. Because you can see in the image, you've got home as an option, you've got building A as an option, and then you've got another office somewhere else, which came from the last image of the calendar in the working locations bit. So maybe that's where I thought that where I read that you were adding buildings within the admin panel. But like I say, I'll check that and report back on Wednesday, and I'll report back to Chris so he can share it with you all when he shares the slide deck out as well. So if you get suspicious activity on your Google Workspace account, you'll get a verify it's you prompt. So if there's something happens, someone's managed to get into your account and decides to change the name of your account, for example, yeah, that will be deemed to be a suspicious activity, and Google will say, hey, let's just check that it's you, please, and they'll ask for another prompt. They'll say, can I send you a text to your mobile phone, or have you got a two-factor key that you can put in? So there'll be some additional verification to prove that it's you, that someone who's broken in there won't necessarily have those second options because they don't have your mobile and don't have your UbiCo key or whatever method you choose to use. So it just is an additional way to make your account that a bit stronger, excuse me, if you are hacked, to excuse me for that. So this is compatibility with Microsoft Office. And again, it's another little fractional improvement that makes life a little bit easier. And you get this little triangle that pops up to tell you that there's an issue about some of the compatibility across from Microsoft Office into Google Docs. And it works in Docs, Sheets, and Slides, so you can get the same notifications in them all. And it will tell you what the compatibility issue is. It will also allow you, once you've converted it, to use version history and to restore to an earlier version. So just that whole thing, because generally the compatibility across is getting better, isn't it? When you convert to Google Docs, there are fewer and fewer issues. There are still some. It's not perfect. So you need to be aware of that, but generally it's getting better and better all the time. I don't know that it will ever reduce to zero, but we might get there. But it's just adding in additional functionality to the Google Docs that you might have, and announcements to tell you that you need to consider this before you make any decisions about how you might change it from Word to Docs or whatever it happens, Excel to Sheets and so on and so forth. So it just gives you notices, and it's in the DOC blue box at the top that you see on the GIF there. So you should see that start to happen if you're, across the two platforms in your organization. So that's very useful for people to know. So again, fractional improvement. When you say yes to an invite, you've got the drop down that allows you to specify where you're going to be, so that people know where you are when you are joining the room and how you are joining. You now specify that you're in a meeting room as well. Okay, that's nice and quick and easy. If you are someone, I've got a USB headphone, not USB headphones, standard mini jack headphones, but I've got a USB microphone plugged in here to this Meet call, and you can now got a lot more control over how the Meet controls those devices if they are on the certified devices lists, and you can then use the mute button on a device to mute it rather than having to go into the Meet. So if you are, I'm in my slide deck and not in the Meet at the moment. So if I, for some reason, needed to mute my microphone, I don't think this is on the list of compatible devices because it's an old microphone. In fact, there's not even a mute button on it. But if there were, I could use the mute button on the microphone to mute it, and it would be compatible, and it would control my Meet from the device rather than having to be inside the Meet. And if you are presenting, that's really, very useful. And the color coding on any buttons, so if the button goes red when you're muted and green when you're live, then those color codings will also be compatible. And I've put in the link here in the slide, a link to the Meet certified devices, so you can see which devices are compatible. It's not to say that other devices aren't compatible, but there's not an absolute guarantee that they'll behave exactly as they're supposed to. They might behave perfectly, but they've not been tested, so we can't guarantee that, or Google can't guarantee that. That's all. But there's quite a large list, so it should cover most things, I would have thought, as long as it's a reasonably modern device. So this is a really interesting one, actually. So that if you're using backgrounds, you can see in the example before they clean it all up that there's an awful lot of the background when he moves appearing behind him, and that has been improved, so it looks much better. You can see the link around the edge of the person waving very jollily at us is there, and it gets much better once they've improved it. There is also an option to do cloud-based processing of this functionality, which is brilliant, except it's not available to education accounts, which is really disappointing. So that the Meet makes a decision, and yeah, you're getting high CPU usage. So to reduce the burden on the device, or if it's an old device and it's just not coping very well, if you've got a business enterprise account, it will say, well, I'll do the background processing online for you, and takes the processing power off the device and does it in the cloud for you, which is a great idea, really, really clever, but currently not available for any education accounts, which is a real shame. But there we go, can't be helped. But you should see an improvement in the backgrounds. It'll just, all the processing will be on your device rather than on the cloud. And the cloud only kicks in if the Meet decides that your device needs a bit of help. You've got the option to add color categorization into your calendar now, and you can specify what they all mean. You basically add in these different labels, and you can add each of the labels to each of the events inside your calendar. And then once you've started to do that, on the left hand side you'll see, it's hard to see on the picture really because it shows you the panel on the right, but the time insights button is on the left next to all your calendars. So if you look there, you should see that on your calendar, and then once you click it, of course the panel opens on the right to show you a breakdown of how you're using your time on a week by week basis. And you can do it by color, because of course the colors are related to the different app different labels that you've applied, or by type based on the title of the labels. So it just gives you some insights into how your working week is going, which I think is quite a useful thing. New bit of functionality into Google New Sites. I like this. It's nice. It's good. It allows you to basically add your social media channels in there, and it recognizes that they are there, and then you can customize them and make them larger or smaller, or color, or black and white, or bordered and things. Really useful. Of course, particularly if you are going to go for a site that then goes public and is published publicly. I mean, generally speaking, lots of schools, certainly with younger students, do allow students to publish, but they are published internally, so they're never actually fully published onto the web. As students get older, I think that's less the case. You know, if it's a portfolio of their work and they're going to university to show their work, they might want to then make it public, so they make a different decision. But certainly with younger students, it's only ever made public, internal, but the links will still work, of course. It will still go out there because it's a public website, unless that is blocked through your filters, of course. So if you put Facebook in there and that was blocked, for example, it wouldn't show because you're on a school device and things. But nice that you can, ready built custom things, and you can see that it recognizes addresses and adds the logo in to locations, in this example YouTube and Twitter, that it knows, and other ones that it doesn't know. You need to think about adding a custom image just to make it look a little bit nicer, but it allows you to do that, which is really great. This is just a little bit of information about the noise reduction built into Google Meet Education Plus only, and it just tells me, this is what I would see. The little GIF shows me what I would see at my end. Were I in the Meet and talking away and there was a lot of background noise, it would tell me that it was reducing the noise at my end. At your end, you would just see the circle. You don't see the reducing noise notice. It just tells me at my end. And I was thinking about this for a little while. I think, well, why would I need that? It's actually handy to know that it's having to work so hard, because it might just be that, pushing the door to, so that you're someone who's cleaning the outside or having a chat outside your office, that might all that you need to do. So to be aware that it's working at that noise reduction might help you have a better Meet. So just to be aware of that. And that icon is on your actual your icon inside the Google Meet. So if you haven't noticed it, it's where you're currently probably muted. That's where it appears. When you unmute, your voice appears as a little blue bubble and a kind of wave form there. Little bit extra functionality inside the checklists that are now inside Google Docs, and you can actually basically right click and you can assign it to a particular person and add it to your tasks list. on the fly from the document without you necessarily having to go into somewhere else to add in that as a separate document. So again, another workflow improvement that means the thing just flows that bit easier from place to place. So if you are using the electronic tasks that are built into your account, and don't forget these tasks that you can see on this GIF, they appear here, but they appear on that side panel in all your docs, sheets, slides, calendar, mail, and so on and so forth. So you can get to the same list. Once you've assigned it to yourself or to someone else, you can actually get to that same list from more or less any app that you're in. So it's really great that you can keep referring to them without having to go to other places once you've assigned it and it's in there. So that's that. You've got a better search in chat to find your spaces now. The spaces button didn't used to be there, but it is now there, so you can actually filter out by spaces. It will find discoverable spaces. It will find restricted spaces that you've been invited to, but it will also find spaces that you haven't yet joined, and it will allow you to preview them before you decide whether you want to join them or not, which is actually quite neat. So you do your search then. Have I been invited? Where were those invites? Who invited you to that chat space? Do I really want to know about extreme crocheting? Not sure I do, but I'll have a quick look in there, see if there's anything interesting. And if there is, then I will choose to join. If there's not, I'll choose not to. So it's just a nice additional additional piece of functionality inside the search inside Gmail. And you can see the smart chips at the top, the mail, messages, spaces. Smart chips are starting to appear in that search again there, which we talked about earlier in this session. You've been able to invite visitors, non-Google visitors, into collaborate with documents for a little while. That's been there a while, and it's done by a PIN code. You send them a PIN code, they type the PIN code in, and then based on what level you give them view, comment, or edit, they've been able to do that. And that's what my first three statements there are about. That's been there for quite some time in Drive, Doc, Sheets, Slides, and Sites. You can now also allow them, using the same process, the PIN code collaboration process, to upload documents. So they can actually add documents that they've been working on into a collaboration project that you've been working on with them, even if they don't have a Google account. So it's operability across the from Microsoft Office or whatever, up into Google Drive and things. That is Education Plus only, though. So again, there's a paid for enterprise license, and only those people, of course, who hold the license and it's attached to their account, of course. This is very exciting, and it's on my list to find some time to go and have a look at. There's a whole load of new functions being added in to Google Sheets. And I've just copied and pasted the comments straight into here so you can see what they are. But I just want to talk about one in particular, which is named functions. So if you build a bespoke function in one Google Sheet, once you've done that, you can then go somewhere else and import a function from the first sheet where you built it into another sheet. So if you've done some really clever whizzy function somewhere else, I need it in here now, you can see on this GIF on the bottom right in the panel, you can see import function at the bottom of it there. So it allows you to build your own custom named functions and then import them into other worksheets to do the same task in the second worksheet that you did in the first. So that for me is really, really handy. There was a bleep. Was there a bleep for a question, or was it just a
no, I think it was one person had to just leave there. I think John has gone. Just a quick question on that, Paul. Can you just double check you've got Education Plus and Fundamentals at the bottom of there? So
I know, yeah, I put that in as a reminder. It definitely did say that, and I needed to double check. I was going to go and read the sheet when we got a chance to do it.
Yeah, because Fundamentals that would roll it out to everybody, wouldn't it?
I know, that's what I didn't understand, but it actually did definitely say that. Yes, okay. So quite what that means. But my sense is that, I mean, we've got an enterprise account, so it's hard for me to check. But I'll check whether a non-enterprise assigned account in our training domain and let you know whether a fundamentals account can get to that. And again, I'll report back and you can send an update on that.
Dave seems to think it's available for all, so that should be okay. Yeah, I mean, you would think so. Yeah,
you do get that occasionally, and I have published these odd kind of lists of where it's applied in the past. because I just think it's a typo. I think that's what it is. I think they didn't mean to put. I think they copied and pasted the list of who gets it from somewhere else and forgotten to take out Education Plus. Is my guess. Yeah, that would be the sensible solution to that. So yeah, so just to finish that off, I think that I love Sheets. I think that I'm maybe a 5-10% of its potential. You know, I'm not massively high up, not like Ben Collins or anyone like that. But I just think Sheets offers such huge scope to manage and interrogate data in all sorts of brilliant ways. I'm at the minute exploring the query function, which is just things it can do is just phenomenal. And it all just sits in there and says, look at all that data, but just show me this bit. I'm loving it. It's a great thing. So I would encourage you to have a look at all these new ones, and I'll go through them all. And if there are any particularly useful ones for schools, I will show them when I next do an update. And we're now into September, but I will just these are the last couple that were added in. But I wanted to do the update after this, so I thought I'll include this so I don't lose track of which one I've done. Hopefully you're aware of the @ symbol inside Google Docs now. The @ symbol basically offers you a whole load of the options that you can do within inside of Google Doc without you having to go to the menus. So it'll insert tables or a person's name or another document, or this is what's being called the smart chips, but it's now able to add in emojis in there. So if you just go and type the name of the emoji you want in there, then it will offer the image as a suggestion, and then you just click on it and it drops it in there. So it just allows you to add in emojis in a line without having to go and insert and find the thing. It's just that little bit quicker. It's about that workflow again. Yeah, that's my mantra for the moment. And then this is the last one. Google Hangouts are on their way out. They will be disappearing soon. Hopefully you are aware of it. We have announced it a number of times to let people know. You should by now be in what's called the chat preferred model, which means that the mobile app, the extension, and the Hangouts that appears in Google Chat is now defaulting to, in Mail rather, is now defaulting to Google Chat. But from November the 1st, the Hangouts on the web will do the same. It won't be available, it won't be accessible, and everything will be pushed to Google Chat on the web. There was a note in the comments, in the instructions about this. Be aware about legacy Hangouts. If you've got some people still desperately hanging on to Hangouts because there's a whole series of information there that they don't want to get rid of, then start getting them to get that information out. Just copy and paste it into a document or something. But there will come a point where Hangouts will disappear, and my suspicion is that it might well lose some of their data if there are people hanging on to Hangouts. I mean, I don't know why they would be, other than for the information that's in there, and it needs to be moved somewhere sensible. That's the bottom line, because Google Chat is so much more higher functioning than Hangouts ever was. You know, there's all sorts of lovely bits of things of integration with calendar and all sorts of things which are really nice, and the way you can store files in there and get to them easily and add tasks and things. So it does all sorts of brilliant things that never happened in Hangouts. So you really need to be pushing them to go to Chat because it's a much better tool. But just in case there's anyone still out there using Hangouts, you need to get a move on and get them out of there so that they can not lose anything that they might well not want to lose. And that is the last update for today. We're quite a lot because it was 2 months, of course. So thank you very much for coming along. Any comments, questions that I haven't covered yet? Thanks for that link, Steve, by the way. Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. Available to all. So the next one is the beginning of October. That will be about the 3rd for user updates. Do please come along to that. So the invites will come out by Chris, and the slide deck will come out by Chris as well. So you'll have all of those as well.